In the summer of 1799, amid the heat and dust of a military campaign far from home, a discovery was made that would forever change humanity's understanding of the ancient world. French soldiers working near the town of Rashid, known to Europeans as Rosetta, were reinforcing a fort along the Nile Delta when one of them noticed a dark stone slab protruding from the ground. It was unremarkable in size, broken at the top, and covered in lines of unfamiliar writing. Yet this fragment, later named the Rosetta Stone, would become one of the most important archaeological artifacts ever found, unlocking the long silent language of ancient Egypt and restoring voices that had been mute for nearly 2,000 years. To understand why the Rosetta Stone mattered so profoundly, one must first understand the mystery that surrounded ancient Egypt before its discovery. For centuries, travelers marveled at towering pyramids, colossal statues, and temple walls covered in intricate symbols. These hieroglyphs were admired for their beauty but were completely unreadable. Ancient Greek and Roman writers had already lost the ability to interpret them, and by the time Egypt fell under Roman rule, the knowledge of how to read hieroglyphs disappeared entirely. For generations, scholars speculated wildly about their meaning, believing them to be purely symbolic, mystical, or magical rather than a written language. Egypt's history existed as a magnificent but silent landscape, impressive yet largely unknowable. The Rosetta Stone changed this because it was not a single mysterious text, but three versions of the same message carved into one stone. At the top, now mostly missing, were hieroglyphs, the sacred script used for monuments and religious texts. Beneath them was a flowing cursive script known today as Demotic, the everyday writing used by Egyptians for legal and administrative matters. At the bottom was Ancient Greek, a language well known to scholars of the late 18th century. The text itself was a decree issued in 196 BCE during the reign of King Ptolemy V, affirming his divine status and listing honors granted to him by the priesthood. It was not a dramatic story or sacred myth, but an official announcement, replicated across Egypt on stone stele so it could be read by different audiences. The presence of Greek was crucial. It provided a reliable reference point, making it clear that the three inscriptions conveyed the same content. For the first time, scholars had a direct bridge between a known language and the enigmatic scripts of ancient Egypt. Yet possessing the stone was only the beginning. The path to understanding it would be long, complex, and marked by intense intellectual rivalry. After its discovery, the Rosetta Stone was transported to Cairo, where French scholars immediately recognized its importance. They made detailed copies and plaster casts, which would soon circulate across Europe. However, political events intervened. Napoleon's Egyptian campaign faltered, and in 1801 British forces defeated the French. Under the terms of surrender, the stone was claimed by Britain and shipped to London. In 1802, it was placed in the British Museum, where it has remained ever since, becoming one of the most visited and studied objects in the institution's collection. As copies spread, scholars across Europe began the painstaking work of decipherment. Early efforts focused on identifying proper names, which were assumed to be enclosed in oval shapes known as cartouches. The Greek text provided names such as Ptolemy, and researchers looked for repeating symbol groups in the hieroglyphics section that might correspond to these names. One of the first to make significant progress was the English polymath Thomas Young. In the early 19th century, Young recognized that some hieroglyphs represented sounds rather than ideas, particularly when spelling foreign names. He correctly identified several phonetic symbols and demonstrated that Demotic was related to hieroglyphs, not a completely separate system. His work laid essential groundwork, though he did not fully crack the code. The decisive breakthrough came from a young French scholar named Jean-François Champollion. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Champollion had an exceptional command of ancient languages, including Coptic, a later form of the Egyptian language still used in Christian liturgy. He suspected that hieroglyphs were not purely symbolic but combined phonetic, syllabic, and symbolic elements. Building on Young's findings and his own linguistic insights, Champollion compared cartouches containing the names of Ptolemy and Cleopatra, identifying consistent sound values for specific symbols. In 1822, after years of obsessive study, Champollion reached a realization that confirmed his theory. Hieroglyphs represented a complex writing system capable of expressing spoken language. According to accounts from the time, he rushed into his brother's office, declared that he had solved it, and collapsed from exhaustion. Soon after, he presented his findings to the French Academy of Inscriptions and Belles-Lettres, outlining the principles of hieroglyphic writing. This moment marked the birth of modern Egyptology. The importance of this achievement cannot be overstated. With the decipherment of hieroglyphs, Egypt's monuments were transformed from silent stone into historical documents. Temple walls revealed detailed records of religious beliefs, royal achievements, and everyday life. Tomb inscriptions spoke of family ties, hopes for the afterlife, and personal identities. King lists provided chronologies that could be compared with archaeological evidence, allowing scholars to reconstruct Egypt's long and complex history with unprecedented accuracy. The Rosetta Stone itself, though fragmentary, became a symbol of this intellectual triumph. Its Greek text confirmed the purpose of the decree, while its Egyptian scripts demonstrated how language adapted to different audiences within the same society. Hieroglyphs addressed the gods and the eternal, Demotic spoke to administrators and citizens, and Greek reflected the ruling elite of the Ptolemaic dynasty, descended from Alexander the Great's generals. The stone thus captured a moment when cultures overlapped, revealing Egypt not as an isolated civilization, but as a dynamic society shaped by conquest, adaptation, and continuity. As scholarship advanced, it became clear that the Rosetta Stone was not unique. Similar decrees were later found elsewhere in Egypt, such as the Stone of Canopus and the Decree of Memphis, confirming that the practice of issuing multilingual inscriptions was common under the Ptolemies. These discoveries reinforced the accuracy of Champollion's decipherment and expanded understanding of the scripts involved. Yet the Rosetta Stone retained its special status as the first and most famous key to the ancient language. Public fascination with the stone grew steadily. In the British Museum, visitors gathered around it, tracing the carved lines with their eyes, even if they could not read them. Over time, translations were added, allowing people to see how the three scripts corresponded. The stone became an emblem of human curiosity and perseverance, representing the moment when reason, patience, and scholarship overcame centuries of mystery. At the same time, the Rosetta Stone became entangled in debates about cultural heritage and ownership. Egypt, now fully aware of the artifact's significance, has repeatedly requested its return, arguing that it is a vital part of the nation's historical identity. The British Museum has maintained that the stone was acquired legally under the standards of the time and that it serves a global audience. These discussions continue, reflecting broader questions about colonial history, archaeology, and the rightful place of ancient objects in the modern world. Beyond these debates, the legacy of the Rosetta Stone extends far beyond Egyptology. Its decipherment inspired confidence that other lost scripts could be understood, encouraging efforts to decode cuneiform, Linear B, and other ancient writing systems. It demonstrated that even the most obscure texts could yield their secrets when approached systematically, combining linguistic knowledge with careful comparison. In this sense, the Rosetta Stone reshaped not only one field of study, but the broader human approach to the past. Today, the stone itself shows the marks of its long journey. Its surface is worn, its top broken, its edges smoothed by time and handling. Yet the text remains legible, a testament to the durability of carved stone and the foresight of those who ordered its creation. When the priests of Memphis commissioned the decree in honor of Ptolemy V, they could not have imagined that their routine proclamation would one day unlock an entire civilization's history. The story of the Rosetta Stone is ultimately a story about communication across time. It reminds us that language is both fragile and powerful, capable of being lost for millennia and then restored through dedication and insight. It shows how cultures speak not only to their contemporaries but to the future, leaving traces that wait patiently to be understood. From a forgotten slab buried in the Nile Delta to a centerpiece of global heritage, the Rosetta Stone stands as one of humanity's greatest intellectual bridges, connecting the modern world with the ancient voices of Egypt at last heard again.